Hi,
Hi, Areej, how are you?
I'm good, and you?
Great. Everyone, please welcome Areej Daibas from live from Jerusalem. Areej, because we set this at the last minute, we didn't get a chance to research your bio thoroughly, etc. So I know you went to the Schmidt School and you also graduated from University of Bethlehem.
That's true.
Could you tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background, what you do before we get started?
Sure. Um, I've been working for a long time now in development work. I worked in different NGOs. I worked with the Office of the Palestinian President. I currently work for a women organization. It's an NGO based in Jerusalem. I'm also an interpreter by education and profession as a freelancer. Um, I'm also an activist, civil society activist, but also a Fatah activist in the city.
Oh, great to have you with us today, and thank you so much for accepting our invitation at the last moment. I know it was a very short notice.
No problem at all.
To begin with, bring us up to date, please, with some background information about what's been going on the last few days, particularly for some people who have not really been watching the news.
Right. Actually, things started to happen since the beginning of Ramadan. From day one, the Israeli forces tried to restrict people's movement in the city, people's access to the mosque, to Al-Aqsa mosque, but primarily also they tried to block the Damascus gate. There are the stairs there, and people usually after the prayers like to sit there, like to gather. Last year, for example, because of COVID-19 pandemic, nobody was allowed actually into the old city. So this year, because things are a bit better, everybody was vaccinated, people are very excited to go down to the old city and to be in the old city because everybody was suffering also economically in the old city of Jerusalem. No tourists, no people were allowed into the old city. So it was an opportunity for everyone. Of course, besides the fact that it is the holy month of Ramadan, and actually the city is the place to be during the holy month of Ramadan, and it has all its Arab-Palestinian character during this month very much reiterated and very much there and visible. And so this is usually the atmosphere is very lively. People are there, and people like to enjoy the old city, sit on the stairs in the Damascus gate. And so from day one, the Israeli forces prevented people from being there and started to create a tense atmosphere. And of course, young Palestinians responded. And from that day on, every day, there has been, of course, not clashes in that sense. It is people trying to defend their right to be in the city, basically. But then another development happened, and it was when settlers started to threaten people by threats that are even recorded, that are live, that are on Facebook, on social media, saying death to Arabs. And they were threatening to come down to Damascus Gate and start like harassing and beating people and causing real threats, because one of them was passing in one of the streets near the Damascus Gate and started shooting in the middle of the street. So it was not only threats that were made like verbally, they materialized and they tried to attack people at Damascus Gate. So that has been the case. So from day one, it was a different story, but now a new development was when settlers decided to threaten and attack people in East Jerusalem near Damascus Gate.
Has there been any activities like that inside the old city?
Of course, there are, and also it spread to other areas outside the old city and outside the Damascus Gate area. So it was, there's one of the main business streets in Jerusalem called Salah ad-Din Street, and then the other neighborhoods of Sheikh Jarrah, Wadi Joz, Shafat. Of course, people in the West Bank came out to protest what was happening in Jerusalem. The fact that people wanted to be in Jerusalem and allowed in Jerusalem. So there were also demonstrations and protests at different checkpoints in the West Bank.
Just a note for the people watching us. If anybody has a question, please write it in the comment and we'll try to have answers for you. Now, we've seen some things on the news where people are injured, and has there been many injuries among the Palestinians in the city?
Of course, there have been, on a daily basis, there are different numbers of injuries. The Red Crescent ambulances are always present on site. Sometimes these are moderate injuries, but sometimes people are taken to hospitals for medical treatment. On average, there's a 20 person every night injured. Or also from Israeli occupation forces brutality, when they arrest one person, you see 100 soldiers attacking one person, handcuffing that person, taking them away, and so it is. It has been escalating, and I wanted to point out something. In fact, the situation in Jerusalem. What is happening is not only necessarily linked to the immediate actions of the Israeli occupation forces. It is always deeper. It is because people in Jerusalem have been constantly suffering from movement restrictions, from a lot of taxes imposed on them, from house demolition, from settlers' activities, and so it is. Even the smallest thing in Jerusalem cannot be seen in isolation of the whole picture of what is happening in the city. And that is why even when they prevent people from sitting on the stairs on Damascus Gate, and it can be maybe saying that the excuse is that they don't want a lot of gathering or people being present in the same area, but it is always more than that. It is always deeper than that, because people feel that they are treated unfairly, that they cannot live freely and enjoy their lives in their own city.
What has the Israeli police attempted to provide any protection to Palestinians when attacked by the settlers and the right-wing extremists?
To be honest, that was true in the sense of they tried to keep settlers away from East Jerusalem and push them back to West Jerusalem. But the thing is, they continue to move in, and they don't use sufficient precautions and measures to keep them away. On the contrary, if you want to see how they use the force and everything against Palestinians who are just protesting, wanting their right to just sit on the stairs in Damascus Gate, you see completely different measures being taken. So while they try to push them away and avoid really clashes between the two sides, you cannot take it seriously, because we've also seen intelligence services, Israeli intelligence services, many of them were taken on picture, and people took pictures of them, and they were within the settlers groups being there, and I cannot say that they were giving them instructions, but they were there. So why were they there? We don't know.
We have a question from the audience. Are the settlers young people or older generation?
They are of all generations, mainly young, mainly young, but I've seen, for example, their leaders, and one of them was telling them Kahana is Chai, meaning Kahana is one of the settlers and religious leaders who was an extremist. And so he was telling them we need to follow his footsteps and we need to attack the Palestinians. And one of them was talking with a reporter saying, we will not burn their villages, but we will expel them so that we can live in their places. And she was saying that on TV.
Wow. That's incitement if I've ever seen any.
Yeah. She's one of the people who has, she has been popular recently, and she's a young woman. And so the reporter asked her, so are you a person who believes that Palestinian places and homes and stuff should be burned? She said, not necessarily, but I want to expel them and to take their places, like we did in several places inside the old city.
We have a comment and a question here from London. It says, I believe there has been a huge protest in London by the anti-Zionist Jewish community. Have the religious Jewish community been able to stand with you in Jerusalem?
Have the religious community? Can you repeat that again, please?
Have the religious Jewish community been able to stand with you in Jerusalem?
No, not as far as I've seen. I don't say that there aren't Israeli Jews who do stand with Palestinians. For example, in Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood, where 28, for example, families are threatened by immediate eviction, and more also in that neighborhood. There have been protests, and we've seen Israeli Jewish activists present there, but I cannot say that these are from the religious groups. But I'm not in the Jerusalem current events.
Yeah. Just another note. We welcome any questions from our audience. Please just write them in the comments and on the screen. Question: do you mean the anti-Zionist Jewish community? This is kind of a referral to the prior question.
I think maybe he's referring to the Naturi Karta and some other religious groups who are against the Zionist, anti-Zionist. I agree. We haven't seen them yet in Damascus Gate, where the events are taking place every night.
That's correct. That makes sense. The person who asked the question in the first place is indicating yes. Yeah, that was the intent.
Yeah. But we haven't seen them yet. But usually they are present, but not yet.
What has the access been like to the holy sites in Jerusalem, like the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock? Are there any restrictions for people in Jerusalem itself or in the West Bank for access during the month of Ramadan?
During the month of Ramadan, the restrictions have been eased, in fact, to say the truth. But for the West Bankers, has been extremely difficult. It is preconditioned by having had the vaccination, the COVID-19 vaccination, and they allow only certain numbers every week to come in. And it is very difficult at checkpoints from the morning on Fridays, especially, for people to cross into Jerusalem. In Jerusalem itself, people have been allowed, but on day one, for example, of Ramadan, we had Israeli soldiers breaking some doors in the vicinity of Al-Aqsa Mosque. And of course, they are always allowing Israeli settlers to go into Al-Aqsa Mosque during the month to pray, which is also provoking the worshippers.
We have a comment from someone who is apparently in Denmark. It says, not one word in Danish news about this. Remarkable.
Yeah. In fact, it has been gaining more and more media coverage now, because in the beginning, everybody thought it was a matter of 1 or 2 days. But since the beginning of Ramadan, this has been the case every night at Damascus Gate and in Jerusalem neighborhoods, every night.
Isabella is asking, how are Palestinian neighborhoods staying safe?
That's a very good question, because people remain vigilant. Young people are around in the streets, but we got a lot of settlers attacking, for example, people inside the old city, people in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood. There isn't a lot that people can do. People are defenseless in that sense. They don't have arms. I don't preach that they have arms, but if we don't get protection from the forces that are in place, then nobody is safe, basically. So it's just like that.
Sahar Mustafa, who is a novelist, Palestinian novelist in Chicago, saying, no mention in news as egregious as New York Times, calling it Israelis and Palestinians clash. Sheer violence against Palestinians, period. Another comment here, New York Times is reporting clashes, but not the reality of it being attacks towards Palestinians.
No, exactly, I agree. That's why I hesitated even to call them clashes, because they aren't. They are people trying to defend their right to be in their city without being harassed, to enjoy their city, to enjoy the holy month of Ramadan in peace, and just be in the city.
Another question is, did the violent settlers attack homes, and are the soldiers helping them?
The settlers did attack homes inside the old city. There's video footage of settlers throwing different sharp objects and things from a high point on the houses of Palestinians, with Palestinian children screaming. There's clear footage of that. While they don't help them in the sense that they attack the people at the same time, they help them by not doing anything, by being present and not doing anything.
Areej, what part of Jerusalem do you live in, and what's been your personal experience?
I live in Beit Hanina. It is a neighborhood that is 15 minutes to Damascus Gate. I haven't been able to go down to Damascus Gate as much as I want, and to be in the old city, because I'm afraid for my kids, because there are all the time the Israeli forces fire stun grenades, they fire tear gas, there are mounted soldiers on horses that push people away, and it is not safe to be present down there.
Question from Minnie. The UN, question mark. What can people do to get their involvement?
The UN actually they called upon the two parties to show self-restraint, which is funny, to say the least. But everybody actually, like the UN Special Coordinator for the Middle East process, has issued a statement expressing concern over what was happening, calling for a calm during this time in the holy month of Ramadan, and against incitement. But that's about it.
We got some more questions. This is a comment. As an American, I look to the BBC to give more informed international news, but the BBC has been glaringly biased in covering Sheikh Jarrah. No mention, of course, of clashes.
Yes, isn't that the case, actually? I mean, like, usually you don't get a lot of reports really covering what is happening. I think many people, that is why many people are switching to alternative media, like channels and different sources of information. BBC has been biased against Palestinians on several accounts, actually, not
Yeah, I
only
mean
in the
the
secular.
BBC is not what you'd call unbiased. They may be in the business of providing good news reporting around the world, except when it comes to
When it comes
Palestine,
to
where they're
Palestine.
definitely
Oh,
biased.
oh yeah.
In England, if you want to get the real news, you watch Channel 4, not BBC, because everybody knows BBC is
It's
dominated by
biased.
Zionist thought.
Yeah.
I know when the museum first opened, they came and interviewed me for 6 hours in English and Arabic, and they never published any of it
Oh
because
my God.
they did not like what I had to say.
Yeah.
This is a question. When it comes to policing the neighborhoods in East Jerusalem, who is responsible for keeping the peace?
Of course, Israel being the occupying force. Actually, the Palestinian Authority is not allowed to operate neither as institutions nor as security agencies in the city of Jerusalem. So it is completely under the control of Israel, and Israel is supposed to be policing the neighborhoods.
Is another question here. We saw on Channel 4 News in UK the skunk liquid being sprayed over Palestinians. I know this happened in Hebron. Is this the police doing this or settlers?
The police.
Yeah, I don't think the settlers have skunk,
No,
the skunk liquid.
no.
From what I understand, that liquid is terrible. It stays with you for days, and people can't get near you if you get sprayed with it.
Yes, and that's how they also catch people later on.
Yeah.
How they arrest them.
Yeah. Somebody's asking, is Bab al-Amud same as Damascus Gate? I think I can even answer that question. Yes, it is.
What?
Bab
What was the
al-Amud and
question again?
Damascus Gate.
Yeah, Damascus Gate. Yeah.
They're the same thing, right?
Like what?
No. Is when you say Bab al-Amud and you say Damascus
Bab
Gate,
al-Amud is Damascus Gate. Yes.
it is.
Yes.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember from when I used to go to Jerusalem that.
Yeah.
Do you think this could lead to a new intifada?
That's a very difficult question to answer. Nobody knows, to be honest. Would it spill over to become a full-fledged intifada, new intifada? I don't know. I don't expect it to be. But the way it has been happening every night and seeing protests in the West Bank and in Gaza Strip in solidarity and in support of Jerusalem and the people in the city, it has created some momentum, but I don't see it yet as developing into an intifada. That's my modest opinion. But again, nobody can answer this question and be safe, meaning in the sense of being correct and accurate. Nobody really knows at this point. It's too early.
So we have a lot of questions here. I'll go through them quickly.
Okay.
One of the questions are 48 Palestinians able to come to Jerusalem with help?
Yes, yes, they do. In fact, we are very pleased that they are able to come. They come in buses. They started coming to East Jerusalem and to the Old City particularly, even 1 week before Ramadan. There was a whole shopping festival, just events organized so that to revive some of the economic life in the old city. And they have been constantly coming now for prayers during the month of Ramadan.
Next question is, what are the most accurate news outlets for understanding the truth about what is happening in the Middle East?
Oh, that's a good question. I have to research that because I live it. I don't look for news about it. So I cannot recommend some specific news outlets, but I can like look it up and get back to you.
Yeah, it's very hard finding any news that is true. I guess I would hate to say it. If you check Haaretz, usually they have good information that is
Haaretz is
accurate.
good. It's good and accurate and not bad as coverage.
Not bad coming from Israel.
Yeah, exactly.
But usually they have, you know, a lot of insight because they're there and they have
Yes,
access and they're able to publish some of the news. I think it's
it's a
better
good
than
place to start.
yeah, it's better
Yeah,
than a lot of other sources.
no, I
Um,
agree.
are people allowed to pray at Al-Aqsa freely?
Excuse me?
Are people allowed to pray at Al-Aqsa freely?
Are people allowed to pray at Al-Aqsa freely? Not always. It's usually only people from Jerusalem. There have been restrictions on and off, different excuses and different reasons, and sometimes during specific hours of the day. But it has been better since the beginning of Ramadan, but not for everyone, not for West Bankers, for example.
Mm-hmm. Where can we get video of these fascist riots that we might show on our programming? Somebody's asking that.
Yeah. I see it. I see it usually on my Facebook news feed. I can send you a few videos that you would, if you can share with the rest.
Sure. The answer to the question is check Facebook and Instagram. Check social media.
Yeah,
That's the best place to find the videos.
social media. Eye on Palestine is a good place.
Yeah.
On Instagram.
Another question. Hearing death to Arabs being chanted in the streets felt very similar to seeing white supremacists chanting hatred in the streets of Charlottesville, Virginia. That was a comment. Certainly.
Certainly.
Another comment and a question. Most of what we get here in Mexico does show clashes at Damascus Gate and outside on the streets. What is the situation inside the walls of the old city? Is there restricted movement?
Inside the city, there isn't, but usually there are like clashes with the soldiers because people try to go to the mosque or they want to perform prayers. Sometimes they restrict them, so sometimes there are clashes between the people and the soldiers. And I wanted to add one thing about the point about the chanting slogans of death to Arabs. When I saw it, I kept thinking to myself, how on earth can something like this be so like shown and covered and said in public without any fear, with faces exposed, people known, their identities are known. Some of them are leaders of within their communities and their groups, and they are still running freely on the streets. This is a question that I understand the reality, I understand the situation, but then from the world's perspective, how would people feel about it? That is a question of ours all the time. When people chant freely, death to Arabs, very clearly, very racist, very everything, and they still run freely and are allowed to gather and are allowed to come into East Jerusalem and attack people, I think it is outrageous.
Yeah, there's a comment from a person with the handle, it's actually Brooklyn. Very creative. Historically, the mainstream media has done a great job at dismissing the experiences of Palestinians by not giving them a platform to report on what living in an apartheid state looks like. Instead, another person asking about, can you send us videos? We again refer you to Facebook and other social media. Somebody saying no audio. Anybody having trouble with our audio? It may be just your audio on your side there. Another comment, our rotten media calls the settlers Jewish nationalists. I hope to hear them called white supremacists, which is what they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another comment from, it's Brooklyn. Instead, we have these reporters regurgitating whatever the Zionist state wants them to report on, completely erasing the experiences of Palestinians. It's all very calculated.
Of course.
Hello from New Haven, Connecticut. How about books about the history of Palestinians and Israelis? Well, that's another story. We really don't have time to get into all the books and all that. But I could tell you we have some documentary films coming up at the starting on May 15th during Palestine Museum US festival that's called Palestine Art Week, and we're showing 6 hours of documentary films on the history of the Palestinian situation. Please spell the Israeli news source.
It's
H-A-A-R-E-T-Z.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep going here. Eye on Palestine, we mentioned that. Not exactly. White nationalists don't have idea of protection. Good point. And thank you, Keith. Dana Miller, our regular follower from Mexico City, he provided the link to the Haaretz website. Have any Jewish supremacists been arrested?
No, not to our knowledge. And actually, there has been a photo now, like going around on Facebook. It has gone viral somehow, and it is Israeli forces arresting a young Palestinian boy with all the force and brutality, and next to it is a settler's boy, almost the same age, and they're like taking care of him and trying to calm him down. And but both like the boy, also the settler boy, was involved in clashes and stuff, but then the way they treated the Palestinian boy and the Israeli settler boy is completely different, and it is summarized in this one photo.
Question here. I'm skipping a lot of comments because people can actually read them if they're watching on Instagram. One of the question here: will this live be saved? Yeah, this will be saved as an IGTV post on the Palestine Museum US Instagram. So once we're done, we will save it as under IGTV. Somebody asked earlier, what can people in the U.S. do to help?
That's a good question. What can people, first, to get the right information. I think that is very important. Information and getting the right information is key. And I think just exposing, I've watched, and I was happy to see the verdict against the police officer who, in the George Floyd case. And it is, when justice is served, is something that everybody can be happy about and rejoice. And I think if people are able to expose what is happening really on the ground in Jerusalem and expose it in its right light, the fact that people are treated differently and in a racist manner, are being attacked and are unable to live freely in their own city. We live in Jerusalem on residency cards. That is just considers us as residents. We are not citizens, we are not anything, and they can revoke our right to stay in the city if we leave the city for 1 year, or if we live in a West Bank city, and people who travel to learn abroad, for example, to study abroad, they want to come back, they get their rights to stay in the city revoked, and they have to apply for a visa to get back to their city. And so these are kinds of the situations and the conditions that people live in and have to live with in Jerusalem. So if people are able to expose that in its true light, it's truly an apartheid regime, and a regime that wants to expel Palestinians from the city and replace them by settlers. As simple as that. It was summarized by that settler girl who said it. She said, I don't want to burn the houses, I want to expel them and live in their place. And so if people are able to expose that, share that news with more people so that more people are aware of what is happening, that would be something very useful for us.
Great. We got some more questions here. Are there members of the U.S. Congress speaking out about the riots? I'm not sure Areej would be the best person to ask that question to, but has anybody in the audience seen any statements by Rashida Tlaib or Ilhan Omar or any of the Congress women or men that are usually outspoken on behalf of Palestinians? If you have, please write them in the comment here. Are there any Israeli peace activists out on the streets right now in solidarity with the Palestinians?
I haven't seen any. I haven't seen any yet. There has been in other incidents, in other cases, but at one point it was linked also to elections in Israel. So it was part of the election campaign at the time. But I don't underestimate Israeli peace activists. They are there often in different occasions in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood. They are there every Friday protesting, but we haven't seen them in the recent events.
Are Palestinian businesses in the old city being harassed?
They are, and they are screaming. They want to be able to work and because they are able to open longer hours now during the holy month of Ramadan, and because people usually are in the old city for longer hours at night also, and there are usually evenings and music and different things. So they are suffering because they've been waiting actually for the holy month of Ramadan to see their businesses improve and flourish.
We have a comment. The Palestinians face terrorism from armed civilians, and out of uniform persons as well.
Yes, we have these units also that are working undercover. They are among the Palestinian youth, and suddenly they arrest them. But also the settlers while not the young settlers who attacked the Palestinians yesterday, 2 days ago, but usually settlers do carry guns. And as I told you, there was one incident, a settler stopped his car in the middle of the street, stepped out, shot few bullets from his gun, and left. It was God's grace that there was nobody close by to be like injured.
There's a question from Nancy Nesbitt. Nancy's actually the head curator of the Palestine Museum, U.S.
Hi, Nancy.
But nice to have you here, Nancy. Nancy's question is, as predicted, Biden declared the Armenian genocide. Do you think he may further label Palestine a similar situation? Like they say in English, it would be a cold day in hell when he does that, probably.
Yeah.
Do you agree that's a remote possibility, right?
That's a very remote, very. Yeah. But it's also it's good to mention the Armenian genocide and to hope that justice will be served also for that eventually.
Yeah. بالعربي بيقولوا لما ينور الملح.
لما ينور الملح بس حبيت a cold day in hell كمان.
Another comment here.
بالمشمش كمان they say.
What is it?
بالمشمش.
بالمشمش, yeah, of course. The mishmash is likely to happen. It just is going to take a long time.
And a very short period of time. Yeah.
Another comment is, I heard Biden issued a statement calling for peace, and an Israeli government official fired back that the U.S. has no room to talk because its cities are burning.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah. I believe imported settlers, who are usually social rejects in their own right, are paid to remain unemployed except to terrorize neighboring Palestinian farmers.
It's not only that. There are different, of course, groups within the settler community, and there are people who are being paid so that they can study, do religious studies. The Haredim, they are called, and these are neighborhoods of Jewish Israeli Jews who do not serve in the army, who don't work usually, and they dedicate their time to prayers and to learning the Torah. That's one group. But then there are the settlers who are given all the advantages, all the the loans and the mortgage and all the easy soft conditions, so that they can go live in West Bank settlements, and usually they are built on top of the hills so that they can control all the area and then harass and terrorize the Palestinian farmers of their lands. Many times they burn down olive trees, they burn down the crops for the Palestinian farmers. And so, yeah, that's also another group of settlers.
Okay, let's see if we have, there are some more questions here. Somebody's asking if organizations such as B'Tselem have been involved in this at all, or have issued any statements.
They might have. I haven't looked them up, but B'Tselem were very courageous earlier when they issued a report and they described Israel as an apartheid state. Mm-hmm. So I refer them to that, and I haven't seen a recent statement by them on the incident. There might have been, but I haven't checked it up.
Yeah. Okay. Sure, we got a lot of questions here. While we're having you, Areej, let's talk a little bit about something a little bit kind of more comforting to people. So tell us, what's Jerusalem like in Ramadan?
How's Jerusalem during Ramadan? First, of course, there are the decorations for Ramadan, and it's usually beautiful with lights and like the Ramadan fanus. How do I call it? Lantern? Ramadan
Lantern.
lanterns everywhere, yeah. And then the shops, they have all like the things that people usually eat during Ramadan. So what do I mean by that? You have the different types of handmade juices like tamar hindi, kharoob, araqsus, and all of that. They are there. They are sold on the in the markets, and also you get the nuts, the dried fruits. You get the qataif, of course, and you see rows of people standing to buy that. Qataif is something similar to pancake, and knafe, of course, and qataif is similar to pancakes, and it is eaten usually during the month of Ramadan, stuffed with walnuts or sweet cheese. And also, like you see, of course, the prayer time, and then you get iftars, group iftars for people to break the fast. And after that, there are the prayers at the mosque, and then there are also evenings with religious music and chanting, and people coming together. There are activities for the kids. So usually it is very colorful, very lively, and people go down to the old city. They bring down their argilas. They sit around. People talk. They play cards. They stay awake until suhoor, and then they leave. So that's how the atmosphere is in Jerusalem during the holy month of Ramadan.
Yeah, Areej, tell us. You had an invitation tonight, and
I am
sorry
still,
if we disrupted that by having you join us
no, no,
here.
no,
We
no, don't
appreciate that.
worry.
Tell us all about that.
About my invitation?
Yes.
In what sense?
What was it for? Tell us about. You got invited to iftar at some of your friends.
Yes,
What was the food like, and how was it?
yes. The food was wonderful. Actually, my friends are listening. I cannot say, but it was wonderful. No, no, I'm being honest. It was wonderful. We had msakhan. Msakhan is a traditional Palestinian dish. It is bread, and it has oil and onions that are cooked, and we use a special spice called sumac. Sumac is a sort of spice that is used for this dish, and it usually has also like chicken on top, and we eat it with our hands because you can eat it, of course, with a fork and a knife, but it is best eaten with hands and with the oil coming and dripping from your hands. It's a very delicious dish, so it was really nice. And I see them preparing knafe at the time now, not qataif. They've done homemade knafe, and we drank coffee already. And of course, there was soup and salads and hummus and all of that, with a lot also of Ramadan drinks, tamar hindi, and the likes. So it was
Was the
really
soup? Was the soup adas?
Adas, lentil soup,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Fijil?
I had the fijil radish, yes.
Yeah, so it was lentil soup
And
with
olive,
radishes.
and
That's
olive.
very traditional. Now,
Yes, yes.
with the msakhan, what kind of bread was that? Obviously, it wasn't khubz tabun.
It's something similar to taboon. Now the bakeries in Palestine do something similar to taboon khubz. It's not the same, but it's similar.
Great. That sounds so good.
Shukran. I got my
So,
knafe now. I don't know how can I show it to you.
you're gonna show it to us?
I don't know how to do that. Yeah.
Just take
Here.
the phone. There it is. Yeah, the looks good. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, please give your hosts our great appreciation for
I will.
letting us do this interview with you while you're at their house and while you're
Thank
having
you. I
dinner
will.
there, and very much appreciate that. We thank you and
Thank
them
you.
on behalf of
Thank
our
you.
audiences here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, I think we're coming close at our time, and we do want to send you back to finish your dinner. Thank you. So thank you so much. And
Thank you.
yeah, thanks for everybody who joined us today. I noticed some people wanted to join and they could not join because they didn't have Instagram, or they signed up for Instagram, but they didn't realize that they needed to follow the museum to be able to see it. Hopefully the second time around would work better. This will be recorded and it's available on will be available on an IGTV on the museum Instagram page. Thank you so much, and please be
Thank you.
safe. Allah ma'akum.
Shukran. Shukran.
Well,
And hopefully next time we meet, it'll be under better conditions. And hopefully that I didn't depress people too much. I want to say that despite everything, Palestinians continue to go on with their lives. We are people who love life, who will continue to maintain our traditions. In fact, I just wanted to mention, maybe it's not an important detail, but I'm a Christian myself, but I celebrate Ramadan like one of my own religious holidays, because we live here. We are one people. We love our city. We love our country, and we just want to live a regular, free, independent life, just like any people around the world. And we continue to maintain our traditions, and we will continue to fight by just being here and continue to go about our daily lives, regardless of what harassment might come or what kind of restrictions we have. We will prevail.
الفرج
That's
قريب إن
my
شاء الله. الفرج قريب.
Inshallah. Ya Rab. Ya Rab. We shall overcome.
Yes. Thank you
Inshallah.
so much, and good night,
شكرا.
and تصبحوا على خير. مع السلامة.
لا خير. باي. الله معك. باي
Bye
باي.
bye.